Happy holidays, everybody. Today I champion this term happy holidays because I do not appreciate Christmas being forced on me. And tomorrow, there will be a Christmas message to the Palestinians. Now, I don't celebrate Christmas, but I do wish Palestine Merry Christmas because I am pan-Abrahamic. There is this notion that I'm pro-Muslim by a lot of people, and that's because of my affinity for the Muslims and my very much family connection to them. But there's also people that think that I'm pro-Christian because I'm truthful on the topic of Christianity. It's funny, though. Go ask a bunch of other Christians. They'll say that I'm the biggest enemy Christianity's ever seen. Not all Christians actually say that or hold that opinion. And I actually do have Christian friends and Muslim friends. I've always been rather frustrated with people that act like they know more about Islam than me. Like, I'm not from Muslims. Muslims, of course, a Muslim would. But when a non-Muslim acts like they know more about Islam than me, I get really annoyed because in most cases, it's just not true. Usually I know so much more about the Muslims than most people do. More than a lot of Jewish people do, actually, which is kind of annoying too. I've made it my business to investigate pretty much every religion, as well as every proto-religion. And I tell the truth about this stuff, and it bothers people because it doesn't fit into what they want reality to be. And, you know, when I say that, I don't believe in Jesus of Nazareth at all, but I believe when Christians seek Jesus of Nazareth, they're not connecting into the real Jesus of Nazareth. They're connecting into the first legend, which is basically something based around the only conclusion you can get if you look at the contradictory New Testament. I offend a lot of people when I say that I support the existence of Queen Helen and what she did. I offend even more people when I say Gnostic Christianity is the enemy, not Trinitarian Christianity. The funny thing is if you know anything about Gnostic Christianity, it's the exact same thing as theological anti-Semitism. There are strands of theological anti-Semitism in Christianity, for sure, but there's strands. That doesn't define Christianity. A lot of traumatized people believe that it does. And this is just really upsetting, annoying, and I've lost my tolerance for it. I mean, I've heard people say, for instance, that there are terrible scandals from the Amish, never giving me any fucking credible evidence at all. And then people will do the same thing about, like, say, Jewish people, like, oh, you guys are into pedophilia, which we are not. Quite the opposite. We are the opposite of that. But people will take a Talmudic verse out of context, completely out of context. The favorite one people like to do is say that, Jewish men believe that it's okay to have sex with a 3-year-old girl. This is not actually true at all. There was a debate around a woman's maturity and what would happen if she was violated before that maturity. And the conclusion was that she's still a virgin because you can't equate rape to something dishonoring her. That's actually what that's about. But I have noticed one thing. I used to work a lot on anti-Semitic Facebook. It's weird because I hate it when Dr. Weisfeld gaslights people more Jewish than himself by saying, oh, well, you must be anti-Jewish if you don't go on Facebook because of Zuckerberg. Except Zuckerberg's a Nazi. Zuckerberg's not Jewish. His mother could show me all the credentials showing she's Jewish. I'd burn them and say, no, you're really a Christian. That's the big difference. In order to preserve the Jewish nation, we have to believe in membership decapitation. Chabad Lubavitch, if you're part of Chabad Lubavitch, you should actually be marked as a Christian, not as Jewish. Anyway, I don't know if anybody can tell, but I'm complicated. And the way that I'm approaching this is complicated. And I can do this without emotion, but I have to prep myself, I have to work on it, write a bunch of stuff down and get to business on it. Whereas if I talk just freestyle like this, just let it go, a lot of my anger seeps through. Because on the one hand, I don't know if you've noticed this, I can be very protective of the Christians. But on the other hand, I expect them all to know their place. And that's to have no power. Your scriptures don't allow you to hold power. Therefore, every Christian who tries to hold power should be dealt with harshly. Christians in the West are very malicious people that should be given like mental exams to see if they're fit to even operate properly in society, given the fact that they have such a venal hatred of Palestinian Christians. And then by the time they realize that they do have empathy for the Palestinian Christians, they turn around and blame Jewish people and watch Tucker Carlson. Before Palestinians even cared about Zionism, Jewish people opposed Zionism. Palestinians only cared when it personally affected them. And the only Palestinians that immediately opposed it were the Jewish Palestinians, the people of Meir Sharim. Does this water down the intensity of the Holocaust, the Gazan Holocaust? No. Does it water down the context of the Nakba? Absolutely not. But why does everybody have to keep watering down that there's Jewish Palestinians, or that Judaism at its root cannot coexist with Zionism and never will? A lot of this has to do with the fact that the genuine Jewish Torah position is that the state of Israel should not exist, and if you seek a two-state solution, you're genocidal. There should only be Palestine. Now, there's also the no-state solution, which I do favor that as well, but the no-state solution strengthens Palestine and removes the state of Israel forever. There is a book written by Dr. Weisfeld on this, actually. It's called The Federation of Palestinian Hebrew Nations, and it is by far his best work. But I'm going to play a video which comes from the United Nations, and it's very disappointing. I'm also putting out this video to let you know that tomorrow, a video wishing Palestine Merry Christmas will be coming out. So without further ado, I am now going to play this very underwhelming video. Happy holidays. I hope everybody enjoyed Hanukkah. I do hope genuine Christians have a good Christmas. I hope pagans and Wiccans and witches and devils all had fun with Yule. I hope that Kwanzaa is going to be spectacular for all black people who celebrate that. And yes, happy holidays. Free Palestine.
Your Excellency, Mr. Alberto Van Claveren, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Chile. Your Excellency, Ambassador Vera Baboun, Ambassador of the State of Palestine to Chile. Mr. José Manuel Salazar Chirinash, Executive Secretary of Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, and representative of the UN Secretary General. Representative of governments, intergovernmental and non-governmental organizations, and United Nations agencies and programs. Excellencies, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, I now declare open the second 2025 Civil Society Consultations engagement with Latin American civil society and Palestinian diaspora, a call for action to ensure recovery and healing in Gaza and to end Israel's illegal occupation, organized by the United Nations Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian people. Good morning and welcome to this event. I am Koli Seck, Chair of the Committee and Permanent Representative of Senegal to the United Nations. On behalf of the committee, I would like to extend our sincere appreciation for your presence today. The committee is delighted to be in Santiago today following its meetings with the Brazilian government in Brasilia, all signifying the importance of this region to our mandate and work. One of the main pillars of our work is to organize conferences on the question of Palestine and delegation visits to member states holding strategic impact on our mandate and the peace process in general. We prioritize 2 engagements with civil society organizations per year. Our first engagement was held at the UN headquarters in New York on the margins of this year's commemoration of the Nakba under the theme International Action Towards Ending the Nakba and Realizing the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People. We would like to particularly highlight the importance of the work and support of the Chilean government vis-à-vis the Palestinian people, activism on the ground of the Palestinian diaspora and civil society organizations throughout Latin America. Indeed, the social organization and high-profile activism of the Palestinian community in Chile, Colombia, Brazil, and other countries, the interest of younger generations in Palestine, and above all, the political activism continue to suggest the permanence of the ties that unite the members of this community and their interests in the future Palestinian state, the land of their ancestors. In fact, the interest represents an opportunity for the community on the exercise of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people to connect with all of you and to garner stronger support for our mandate and work in General Assembly with the Security Council and bilaterally with the member states in New York. Your support is coming at a critical juncture as the future of Gaza and the two-state solution are on the Security Council's table as we speak. In this pivotal political context, we value even more the presence of His Excellency, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Chile, with us today. Thank you very much. I would also like to sincerely thank the speakers and participants who have traveled from across Latin America and from Palestine to be here today. Your presence representing the activism for Palestine in your respective countries is greatly appreciated, and we look forward to learning about your work on the ground and benefiting from all the expertise in the room. Today's event is live streamed on UNWeb TV. The recording will be featured on the committee website. And please be reminded that simultaneous interpretation is available in English and French and Spanish. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my honor to give the floor to our host, His Excellency Mr. Alberto Van Cleveren, who will deliver his opening remarks. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Señor Presidente del Comité.
Chairman of the Committee and Permanent Representative of Senegal before United Nations, Ambassador Koli Sek, the Ambassador of the State of Palestine in Chile, Vera Baboun, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Committee on the this opening session confirms that multilateralism makes more sense when it establishes dialogue with civil society and it turns principles into action. Please allow me to confirm a position that Chile maintains since the Palestine matter became part of the UN nation back in 1947. That becomes a state policy. We support the right of the Palestinian people to the self-determination and to an independent state, which is feasible, that coexists in peace and security next to the State of Israel within safe and internationally recognized borders according to the resolutions of the United Nations. This conviction encompasses the entirety of the Palestinian territory, the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and it requires the respect of humanitarian respect from all parts. We condemn the Hamas terrorist attacks, and therefore we reject the disproportionate use and all practices that go against international legality. No cause can be defended by attacking the innocent and civilians, and it is not possible to build safety by violating human rights. The Humanitarian devastation in Gaza demands immediate measures and sustained measures. We value the progress that has been driven by regional stakeholders and global stakeholders for a ceasefire in Gaza. Anyway, it is absolutely necessary for this to be fully effective and that is not violated or infringed. It has happened already. We reiterate the urgency of guaranteeing full humanitarian and unobstructed access for humanitarian aid and to progress into a credible political process to the solution for both states. That's the horizon that Chile promotes in multilateral fora in which we take part and with which we are fully committed. Between 2023 and 2025, Chile has funneled aid through UNRWA and UNFPA to assist a Gaza population with a focus on protecting women, girls, and boys. Likewise, we have executed evacuation operations to save Palestine lives in an extreme context. These contributions reflect the humanitarian vocation of Chile and the conviction that international cooperation is absolutely essential to alleviate suffering and to affirm the respect and humanity. We know, however, that doesn't replace the urgency of finding an effective and long-lasting political solution. Hence, I'd like to underscore the value of this meeting with civil society in Latin America, and most of all, with the Palestinian community in Chile. Latin America knows, because of its own history, the power of human bonds to rebuild the social fabric and laying bridges and to foster a culture of peace that transcends borders. Multilateralism is the right channel to transform that experience into results, better coordinate help, protecting the civilian population, and sustaining a serious and consistent political path. It is a duty of the international community and of our societies to support the recovery and the healing in Gaza and to open up roads that will enable two peoples to live in peace and with equal rights. And in that effort, civil society and the Palestine community are absolutely necessary allies, and the committee that is here today with us, a key partner to keep the topic on the agenda and to translate the international regulations into effective protection. Thank you for bringing this conversation to the region and for reminding us that multilateralism only makes sense if it improves the lives of people. Chile will continue to act constructively, absolutely convinced that stable and equitable peace demands the full respect of the rights of the Palestinian people and its recognition of the right of Israel to their safety as well. Thank you very much and lots of success during this consultation process.
Thank you very much for your remarks, Mr. Minister, and for the historical solidarity and friendship of your country with the Palestinian people. The support of Chile has never failed the Palestinians. I would also like to highlight that yesterday, the committee delegation met with members of the friendship group in the Chilean parliament, as well as representatives of the Palestinian community of Chile. I now request the Executive Secretary of ECLAC and representative of the UN Secretary General, Mr. José Manuel Salazar Chirinas, to deliver his remarks. You have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. His Excellency Alberto Van Clauren Stork, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Chile, His Excellency Ambassador Colin Seck, Chair, Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People, Permanent Representative of Senegal to the UN, His Excellency Ambassador Vera Baboun, Ambassador of the State of Palestine to Chile, members of the Diplomatic Corps, representatives of civil society, welcome to ECLAC. It is an honor to address you on behalf of the Secretary General and make a statement in his representation. Over 2 years after the horrific acts of terror by Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups on 7th of October, and the devastating and unrelenting hostilities in Gaza, we now have a glimpse of hope with the ceasefire in Gaza, the release of hostages, and the scaling up of humanitarian aid. I commend the diplomatic efforts of the United States, Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey in brokering this desperately needed breakthrough based on the proposal put forward by President Donald Trump. These efforts mark an essential first step in silencing the guns, ending the suffering, and restoring basic human dignity. It is an opportunity to chart a new course, but the needs remain vast and sustained access and funding are critical. I call on all parties to consolidate the ceasefire in Gaza and transform it into lasting peace. At the same time, the situation in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, is steadily deteriorating, further eroding the viability of the two-state solution. Relentless settlement expansion and proliferation of outposts, de facto annexation, forced displacement, deadly violence, including by settlers, have entrenched an unlawful Israeli occupation. Israeli settlements are a flagrant violation of international law. Israel is under an obligation to immediately cease settlement activities and end its unlawful presence in the occupied Palestinian territory, as declared by the International Court of Justice in its advisory opinion of 19th of July 2024. The illegal occupation must end. And we must support Palestinian institutions, foremost the Palestinian Authority, politically and financially, to carry out essential reforms and ensure fiscal stability to preserve its viability. The high-level international conference for the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and the implementation of the two-state solution, culminating in the New York Declaration endorsed by an overwhelming majority of the General Assembly, was a significant development. I call on the international community to seize this momentum and to mobilize the political will and resources for tangible, irreversible steps for an end to the occupation and the achievement of the two-state solution. We urgently need to restart a credible political process that can deliver that outcome. Two independent, sovereign, democratic states, Israel and Palestine, living side by side in peace and security within their secure and recognized borders on the basis of the 1967 lines, with Jerusalem as the capital of both states in line with international law, UN resolutions, and other relevant agreements. The United Nations is continuing its work in coordination with all parties to support the implementation of the ceasefire in Gaza and to alleviate the suffering of civilians across the occupied Palestinian territory. I underline the need for full, safe, and sustained access for humanitarian workers, the removal of red tape and impediments, and the rebuilding of homes, schools, and infrastructure. In this regard, UNRWA remains indispensable. Its mandated role in supporting Palestine refugees must be respected. I welcome the ICJ advisory opinion of 22nd of October 2025 on obligations of Israel in relation to the presence and activities of the United Nations, other international organizations, and third states in relation to the occupied Palestinian territory, which reaffirms several fundamental obligations of Israel under international law. The impact of this opinion will be decisive to improve the tragic situation in Gaza. In these efforts, as in all the work of the United Nations, be it focused on peace and security, social progress, better living standards, and human rights, we partner with civil society and their organizations. Indeed, We rely on them, on you, to collectively achieve our goals. I salute civil society activists tirelessly providing humanitarian assistance to those in need, caring for refugees traumatized by violence, demanding adherence to international law, and those continuing to advocate for a peaceful resolution in this conflict. The United Nations will continue to do everything possible to support a peaceful resolution of the question of Palestine, including through the efforts of the United Nations Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process. We appreciate the United Nations Committee on the exercise of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people and its important mandate, including outreach to our civil society partners in efforts towards realizing Palestinian self-determination and return, and to achieving the two-state solution on the basis of the pre-1967 lines. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salazar Tirinas, for those strong words and for the support of the United Nations to the Palestinian people. The committee seconds the Secretary General's urgent call to restart a credible political process that can deliver a two-state solution based on 1967 borders. With Jerusalem is as the capital of both Israel and Palestine. We, as the General Assembly mandated committee and as member state, will continue to work relentlessly to achieve this goal. I will now deliver remarks in my capacity as chair of the United Nations Committee for the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People. Excellencies, chairs, ladies and gentlemen, we gather today in Chile, the home to the largest Palestinian community outside the Middle East. More than a decade ago, Chile officially recognized the state of Palestine as a free, democratic, independent, and sovereign state, politically consolidating the traditional relationship of friendship between the two peoples. Chile also co-sponsors UN General Assembly Resolution 6719, adopted on November 29, 2012, recognizing Palestine as a non-member observer state in the United Nations, a status that it enjoys to this day, pending its recognition as a full-fledged member. These are only a few instances of the exemplary support that Chile has extended to Palestine and the work of the committee. It was therefore a natural choice of location for these consultations. Moreover, the Palestinian community and civil society organizations have made important efforts to organize high-level visits to the occupied Palestinian territory and cultural and political events to raise awareness about the lived reality in the Palestinian people and the occupied territory and impacts of the war on Gaza and Israel's illegal occupation as a whole. With nearly 2 years of the devastating Israeli war in Gaza, the violence deepened across the occupied Palestinian territory with grave threats to regional peace and security. The catastrophic humanitarian crisis, compounded with Israel's endless siege and impediment on the safe and hindered passage of humanitarian assistance, had left countless Palestinians trapped under bombardment and deprived of food, shelter, and medicine for far too long. The announcement of the ceasefire on September 30 has brought back a glimmer of hope and encouraged all of us at the United Nations to remain steadfast in supporting all efforts to ease the tremendous suffering caused by this conflict and to promote peace and stability for people of Palestine and across the region. We must not forget international law continues to be ignored by Israel, impunity prevails, and the credibility of the international community and international norms for conflict prevention and resolution are undermined. In the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, continuing displacement, dispossession, settler violence, de facto annexation and the expansion of illegal settlements, particularly in the E1 area, are eroding the viability of the two-state solution. Yet, as stated, glimmers of hope have re-emerged with important member states' initiatives, namely the high-level conference on the peaceful settlement on the question of Palestine and the implementation of the two-state solution, co-chaired by France and Saudi Arabia. The committee welcomed this political momentum for peace and endorsed the New York Declaration. On 22nd September, the conference concluded with groundbreaking momentum as 10 countries, including 2 permanent members of the Security Council, recognized the state of Palestine. As a comprehensive plan to end the war in Gaza is to be discussed at the Security Council, we reiterate our call for an immediate, safe, unconditional, and undirected delivery of humanitarian assistance through all crossings and throughout Gaza, and the lifting of all crossings by Israel for the resumption of power supplies, entry of fuel, medical supplies, food, and water. Gaza is an integral part of a Palestinian state. As underlined in the New York Declaration, there must not be no occupation, siege, territorial reduction, or forced displacement. We must continue to reaffirm the two-state solution as the only viable solution to ending illegal occupation and express our commitment to taking concrete measures in accordance with international law and in line with the relevant UN resolutions and the ICG advisory opinion to help realize the right of the Palestinian people to self-determination and to counter threats of annexation and forcible displacement. Lastly, on behalf of the committee, I would like to thank each one of the Palestinian diaspora and representatives of solidarity movements and NGOs in the room for your relentless support and work throughout the past years, both at the UN and individually with your countries and on the ground. Your mobilization and expertise have allowed member states to reach the milestone I mentioned earlier. Your efforts have contributed to putting forward common recommendations among member states for the implementation of the year resolution ES 10/24, upholding human rights and promoting accountability for breaches of international law. They include an arms embargo on Israel, targeted sanctions on the suspension of diplomatic relations, trade and cooperation agreements, as well as the sanctions on complicit actors. The world is watching Gaza and the whole of Palestine. States must step up to their responsibilities. There are obligations each one of us must uphold. As the Secretary General has said, we cannot let this fragile moment slip away. And I thank you. I now have the honor to request the representative of the State of Palestine, Ambassador Vera Baboon, to deliver her remarks. You have the floor.
Muy buen día.
Good morning. On behalf of the State of Palestine, it is truly an honor for me to provide you with a warm welcome to His Excellency Alberto Van Claveren, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Chile, to His Excellency Manuel Sirinach Salazar, Executive Secretary of ECLAC and representative of the Secretary General, as well as the Mr. Kolisek, the representative of the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestine people, and others, as well as Mr. Senor Maurice Harris, the president of the Palestine community in Chile. I would also like to express warm welcome to the ambassadors diplomatic corps, senators, members of the Palestine community in Chile and Latin America, members of civil society, and all other individuals taking part in this distinguished event at a very decisive, transcendental moment for the Palestinian cause.
It is not by chance that this convention is being held in Chile, a firm defender of justice, freedom, and the sovereignty of the Palestinian state. Chile co-sponsored Resolution 7719 from UN's General Assembly. It has adopted concrete measures against that occupation. This affirms the Chilean commitment towards international law, the bi-state, two-state solution, and the lasting peace for that region. At the same time, Chile has received the largest Palestinian population, the diaspora that has been promoted here for years, the Palestinian cause through legal and humanitarian measures. And together with that, the Palestinian communities of all of Latin America, including Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Peru, are joined in this meeting, showing the strength of civil society as the motor for justice, equality, and independence for Palestine. The legal action that was undertaken by civil society in Chile at the International Court of Law against Israeli leaders such as Netanyahu for crimes committed in Gaza, that is led by a group of Chilean attorneys from the Palestinian group and from the society at large, are an example of the deep solidarity and commitment that is shown by the Chilean and Palestinian societies towards justice and human rights. It's important to say, to mention the brave support of university students who have brought their voice against the genocide, claiming for the defense of human rights of our Palestinian group. Dear ladies and gentlemen, 77 years after the creation of Palestine, 58 years under occupation, and after these years of an unending genocide and terrible occupation against Gaza, Palestine is now going through tremendous destruction, a tremendous injustice that still has not been solved. In Gaza, mankind is on the verge of full annihilation. It has been now reduced to ashes. The cities have been destroyed, hospitals have been destroyed as well, and the people is caught between harassment and destruction. This requires a human consciousness. No ceasefire can have any meaning while this siege still crushes every kind of life and is a consistent risk. Gaza does not need a temporary relief. It needs to be released from this collective punishment that has left the people without any kind of hope. The West Bank. The West Bank still suffers a tremendous escalation of violence and oppression. The military incursions of Israelis, the destruction of movement, the attack towards settlers, and the land occupation has reached record levels. One of the most alarming developments has to do with the E1 project. If it is to be implemented, it would isolate the West Bank. It would not allow for the essential territorial continuity for a future Palestine state. This consolidates the fragmentation and the control, the recognition of the Palestinian state, reaffirming that if West Bank and Jerusalem are part of the occupied territory. That would be reinforcing the diplomacy against the attempts at annexation and settlements. Even of greater concern, this bill that has just been approved on a first reading by the Israeli Knesset um, brings in the death sentence for these settlers. They themselves, more than 11,000 political Palestine prisoners, are facing systematic torture, inhuman treatment, and serious violations of the humanitarian international law in the Israeli jails. There is abuse that is documented by international organizations and that have been confirmed by the very witnesses themselves. We cannot forget that the international law is still there. It is still being ignored by the Israeli occupying state. So the impunity prevails and it undermines the credibility of that nation and the very rules that were created for the solution of dispute. These violations, without any accountability, erode the faith in the world's governance, showing a very dangerous double standard that threatens the future of Palestine and also the integrity of international order. In the midst of tremendous suffering, the call to justice persists. That is why the Palestinian state reaffirms the need to continue the international momentum that followed the recognition of the Palestinian state and the adoption of New York's declaration. During the General Assembly's meetings, under the leadership of Saudi Arabia and France, that road is still essential for the implementation of the two-state solution, creating the independence of Palestine that includes Gaza, West Bank, and East Jerusalem as capital. Inasmuch as the Security Council is preparing to debate plans to put an end to Gaza. That's the first part. After the results of the Peace Summit on Gaza 2025, we reaffirm that Gaza is inseparable from the Palestinian state, and its reincorporation must be an integral part of a wider search for justice and sovereignty. The two-state solution continues to be the only viable framework, the only fair one for a long-lasting peace for both nations and for the region. We must put an end to the illegal occupation, ensuring the Palestinian people their right to self-determination and self-government under the guiding principle of New York's declaration. That is a state, a government, a law, and one weapon. We express our deep appreciation to all UN organizations and agencies for their implacable striving for justice. And we also recognize UNRWA. Its presence is still indispensable to help attend the refugees. UNRWA is still a pillar of hope and help for many, many Palestinians. This must be seen because no country no people should remain as refugees for more than 77 years. Our deep recognition towards civil society organizations and the Palestinian organizations in Chile and in Latin America. Your participation is not a symbolic one. It is essential. Civil society is the guardian of justice and the voice of consciousness. It's your solidarity towards the Palestinian world is proof of your defense to freedom and dignity. As Antonio Guterres says, peace is not just the absence of war, it is the presence of justice. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ambassador Baboon, for your remarks. Today's gathering indeed stands as a clear testament to the broad and unwavering support of the international community and civil society organizations for the Palestinian people in their pursuit of freedom and a just resolution to the question of Palestine. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, we have now reached the end of the opening session.